Guys, do you realize it's 10 days away until Christmas? Are you ready for it yet? I say that, and you can tell there's a group of people in the room where you hear 10 days away, and like, yay, Christmas is coming. And there's another group of people that are going, oh no, I got a lot to do. I'm just curious, I want to know who I'm talking to this morning. How many of you are completely done with your Christmas shopping? All right. I'm in that weirdo category too. I like to try to get mine done before like Thanksgiving, and this is why. My daughter, yesterday, I had to take her to Target to go get a present for one of her school parties she's going to. And so I was at Target yesterday with basically all of you, and I remember that, you know what, when I think about Christmas, this is not the time of I don't want to think about the stressful things. I don't want chaos. So I try to get my shopping done beforehand so Christmas can be a little less stressful to me. Because Christmas really can be a stressful time of year. You ask kids, like, what's your favorite time of the year? And they say, it's Christmas time. And you ask adults, like, what's the most stressful time of year? Like, it's Christmas time, you know? And I think we look at this holiday that so many of us love so much, where we remember what it's about. We know why we're getting together. We know why we're celebrating. And I think sometimes we build these ideals of what we wish Christmas would look like, and sometimes it's drastically different than the way it really does look in our families. You know, a couple of years ago, I had this picture in my mind of, I wanted to be the really good father, so on Christmas Eve, I'm going to sit down with my daughters, and I'm going to open up my Bible and read them the story of Jesus' birth right before bedtime. And my daughters were 4 and 6 years old at the time. And I gathered up my family, and I was like, I'm real proud to do this, and said, honey, come on in here with me. And we sat down together on the couch, and I was opening up my Bible. I hadn't even found the story in my Bible yet when one of my daughters crossed the imaginary line that you don't cross to your sibling's space. And of course, that came back with a quick snap back, get out of my space, and a kick. And it's like, whoa, calm down. And this escalated so fast. Like, I'm not even in the story yet, and there's a fist fight going on the couch right next to me. And it's like I have this ideal of like, I'm going to have the perfect Christmas, and I'm going to be such a good father and teach my girls all about Jesus' birth, about what this means to us. And I find myself there with both of my girls crying on the couch on Christmas Eve. I'm going, I feel a lot more like Clark Griswold than I do like the perfect father, you know? And I think we look at Christmas time and we think there's so many different things that bring chaos into the Christmas time. And a lot of that can be our schedules. It can be the shopping and going on all the crazy stuff we do like that. But if we really are to be honest, a lot of the drama that you and I deal with around Christmas time directly has to do with the people that you and I spend time with in Christmas time. It's funny because I work with some of the most positive people in our city. I mean, people that love God, they love each other, just wonderful, wonderful people. And at this time of year, we always hear the conversations come up where these very positive people go, oh, my in-laws are coming in town this week. This is going to be interesting, you know? And I think we recognize that there's a lot of different dramas that come up with a group of people that, these are supposed to be the most important people in our life. The relationships are important to us, but because we only spend time with them maybe once a year, there's an awkwardness that comes along with that, a drama that comes along with that. And honestly, I could pass a microphone around this room, and I think each and every person in this room could take a very long time and tell all the stories about the drama that you have in your family that can unfold around the Christmas time. But I don't think any of us want to do that. We all know there's drama there. We want to figure out, if this is a time for celebration, how do we make it a time for celebration and not just a time where it's full of drama and conflict and one fight after another? So today I want to talk a little bit about how to have a successful holiday, how to have success in your relationships with the people that you spend time with in this holiday season. And it's important that we do this because we've got to realize that, we're all fallible. We all have our problems. For many of us, we're going to be coming around a group of people where the last time we saw them, we had it out with them. There was a conflict with them. We haven't talked to them for a whole year, and now we're going to be sitting at the same table again, or we're going to be going to their house. So how do we do that? So if you're taking notes this morning, I want to just go ahead and jump right into this. And I want to talk about 5 things that you and I can do, 5 secrets to success this holiday. And the first point when we jump into it, I mean, obviously, is going to be one of those where you feel like, this is a church point. This is something, of course, you would hear this point in a sermon. And it seems like such a simple idea, but this can be a point that we so easily neglect. And for me personally, it can be a point that I neglect. And the reason why is because when it comes to the holiday season, we get out of our routines. And see, all year long, I have a routine where I get up and I go spend the first part of my day studying my Bible and worshiping God, getting close with Him. In fact, the people that know me the most can tell whether or not I've spent time with God that day or not. In fact, there's been days I haven't, and I've ran into my wife in the hallways up here at the church, and she's been like, "Have you spent any time with God today?" It's very evident if I have or haven't. Well, when it comes to the holiday season, it's like we get a little time off from work. So I don't know about you, but when I get time off from work, what I want to do is I want to sleep in. I want to get some rest. I know there's some of you in here that might get up and go work out or something, but I'm not a weirdo, So, so I sleep in the mornings when I get a chance like that. And in doing so, it's like it throws my whole day off, where maybe I didn't get to spend enough time with God. And it's like I missed this first point, and the first point is this, is to pray, but specifically pray for fruits. Pray for fruits. The Bible tells us that there are fruits of the Spirit. We see in Galatians 5:22, it says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." This lists 9 fruits here that are things that are wonderful attributes for you and I to have in our lives. And that if we can be people that live lives where we're exuding these fruits all the time, relational conflict can all but go away. It can make life so much simpler, but you can't fake fruit. As much as you would try to act like you're patient, patience is an inside thing. And you can try to put on a smile face and act a certain way for it, but fruit is something that you can't fake. There's a lot of things you can't fake. You can't fake being skinny. You can suck your gut in all you want, but eventually the gut's going to come out. We're going to know how many donuts you've eaten, right? The fruit of skinniness comes as a result of a lifestyle of exercise and diet. It's healthy choices, and there's a fruit that comes out of that, of being skinny. In the same way, the scriptures are telling us there are certain attributes that we can have in our life that you can't fake them. But you get these by spending more time with God. And as your walk with God goes closer and closer and closer, a result of that is you're going to start having these fruits. You're going to become more joyful, more loving, more patient, more kind. And these are all things that, of course, we would love to have. And here's why we know we can't fake them. Is when it comes to the Christmas season and we spend time with family members and loved ones that we haven't spent time with in a long time, what we know is inevitable is at some point there will be conflict. Conflict arises in relationships. And what we know about conflict is conflict reveals character. When you go through a conflict, what's truthfully inside you is going to show through. So if you've been spending time with God and you've been praying for fruit and you've been praying, "God, help me be patient, help me be kind," then when you get in an argument about the football game, what will well up from the inside is, "You know what? Let me just be patient. Let me just take a deep breath. This is really not a big deal." But if you haven't been spending time with God, then you can't fake this. And what's going to come out of you might be something a lot uglier. And what comes out of me sometimes is a little bit uglier. It's more anger. It's more, impatience. A little more frustration, bitterness. Things we don't want to admit, but really when the conflict comes up, that's why sometimes we get into these ugly, ugly conflicts in our relationships. Is because we're missing this first thing, is praying and praying specifically for fruit. The second thing that we need to be doing is praying again, but praying for the difficult people. Pray for difficult people. Pray for difficult people. I wonder, ask yourself the question, how often do you pray for those difficult people? This is something I can admit that I fail out over and over again, because when we have difficult people in our families, what we tend to do is we tend to talk it up. And we start preparing ourselves for whatever conflict we think is going to be there. It's great. Uncle Jim's coming over today. Better hide the eggnog, babe. Like we start these biting comments towards going, oh, great, there's going to be conflict again. I'm sure she's going to want to talk about politics again. She's going to bait me into a conversation. It's going to start a fight. And we start getting so negative and talking to everyone else around us about this difficult person in our life, when all the while we've been missing the fact that God's just saying, why don't you come and talk to me about it? Come and talk to me and pray for these people. Pray for the difficult person. God, I pray that you would help Jim today. God, I pray that you give him peace today. Help me to be kind to him. I wonder how often do we really do that? See, Jesus tells us that this is something we should be doing, that we should be praying not just for difficult people, but he even says pray for your enemies. In Matthew 5:43, he says, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemies. This is Jesus talking. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Have you been praying for those difficult people? And I think jokingly sometimes we deal with very difficult people and we say, well, maybe I can just pray them out. Like if I pray hard enough, they'll disappear for good, And you could try that. Who knows? That might work. But one of the things we learn from Scripture and we learn from our walk with God is we see that God intentionally puts difficult people in your life. And the reason why is because God cares a lot more about your character than he does your comfort. And God puts difficult people in your life because God might be trying to grow you in patience. He might be trying to grow you in loving someone that's hard to love. He might be trying to grow you in kindness, and he allows difficult people to be around us because it can stretch us and grow us and change us to be more and more the way he is. So if we're just praying the prayer, God, get rid of this person, that might actually happen, but we know as good about our God as he's going to bring another difficult person to us so that he can continue the work in our lives. So the answer is not, God, just get rid of them. The answer is, God, I pray you'd help this person. I pray that you'd help change me in the way that I act towards this person, the way I see this person, the way I love and handle and deal with this person. If you want to have successful relationships this holiday season, number one, we got to pray for fruit. Number two, pray for the difficult people. And then number three, choose your battle. The first 2 points are all about prayer. This is about action right now, that you have to choose your battles. Not everything is worth having a fight over. We don't need to argue about every little thing. I mean, I see my kids fight over things all the time that really they don't matter at all. I mean, I've had the conversations with my girls in the past where I get frustrated with them arguing in the back of the car because I'll hear something like, Rachel, what's your favorite color? It's pink. Well, I thought you said it was purple. Well, it was purple, now it's pink. You said it was pink. My favorite color is pink. You can't have your pink favorite color because mine's purple. And I'm like, girls, come on. And they're screaming in the back of the car. I'm going, does this really matter? Does it matter? As parents, we look at our kids sometimes and go, you would really fight about that? And it's like then we turn a blind eye to our own actions when we start a fight over, well, that's the way my mom always cooked the turkey. Why do you have to change it here? We've always done cranberry sauce this way, and you're changing it now. It's like we're losing a tradition. Are we really fighting about this right now? Does it really matter which NFL team has the best secondary? Is it worth going over to blows over that, There's some things that just aren't worth fighting for. Yeah, I can think of one of the biggest fights I ever got in with my wife and how stupid it was. I was a newlywed man. I've been married for 1 month at this time, so I knew everything there was to know about women and everything there was to know about marriage. And I came home from work one day, and I opened the door, and I see my beautiful new bride, and she is sitting on the ground in the middle of our living room with a hamper of my laundry, and she is folding my laundry. And guys, what I meant to say was, oh my gosh, babe, thank you so much. But what came out of my mouth was, you're folding my socks wrong. We have now been married for 14 years, and she still won't fold my socks anymore. Oh, yeah. Laugh it up. I can tell you, young man, if you're fortunate enough, if God has blessed you enough to where you have a woman who will agree to marry you in the first place, you should just shut your mouth and just be thankful, okay? But some of the things we fight about, it's like, really, why did those words come out of my mouth? Why am I starting a fight here? Proverbs says this, Proverbs 17:14, beginning a quarrel is like opening a floodgate. So drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. Like, you're just starting fights to start fights. Like, you're opening a floodgate that's going to lead to destruction. There's nothing good that can come out of this. So there are times that we have to just recognize certain things are not worth fighting over. I've had to come to recognize I'm not going to talk about politics with some of my family members. I'm not going to argue about certain issues because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter my opinion versus their opinion. And we could have had a great time of celebration together if we would have just shut our mouths and not argued about the things that didn't matter. We've got to choose our battles. I watch Bishop T.D. Jakes on television all the time, and I quote him where he says, "Don't go to war when there is no spoils." You should never go into a battle and go into a fight unless there's something to gain from it. And many times we've got to look at the things that we're about to argue about and go, wait, is there anything at all that can be gained from this? Or is this just going to be conflict? Is it just going to be fighting? But see, that brings up another question, okay, there is a lot of things that aren't worth fighting about, but there are certainly things that are worth fighting about. There are certainly issues that we do need to have it out about. There are safety issues in relationships. There's issues when it comes to your relationship with God. These things need to be talked about. They need to be confronted and handled. So when do you do that? Well, that brings us to point number 4. Point number 4 is holidays are not the time for confrontation. Holidays are not the time for confrontation. I said it before that, as kids, we say, what is your favorite time of year? And we go, it's Christmas time, it's the holidays. And as adults, we go, what's the most stressful time of year? Well, it's got to be the holidays. And the reason, the difference is kids are not going into the holidays looking for confrontation. But adults are many times. And the reason why is because we go, you know what? I need to talk to my brother about this, and I'm going to handle it next time I see him. But then we don't see him for a month, and we don't see him for 6 months, and we don't see him over the whole winter. And then finally, Christmas comes around. That's going to be the time we see him, and we know there needs to be a confrontation. And it's like what we're looking forward to, the time coming together, or the times of conflict. And that is not the way it should be. Holidays are a time for celebration, not for confrontation. So when should we have confrontation? The Bible tells us that we should never wait for a holiday. In fact, we should never even wait for the next day. Ephesians 4:26 says, "Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry, for anger gives a mighty foothold to the devil." The Bible's saying, you don't need to wait to have a confrontation. Say, well, the next time I see them, the next time I get with them, then I'm going to have the confrontation. He's saying, you need to do it now. Otherwise, you're giving the devil a foothold to where he can destroy your relationships. He can fight you. He can take the fun out of celebration if you wait. So don't do that. Go attack the situation right now and clear up conflict. Jesus tells us relationships are so important that we shouldn't wait on anything. He tells us in Matthew 5, verse 23. He says, so if you're standing before the altar in the temple, or offering a sacrifice to God, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there beside the altar, go and be reconciled to that person, then come and offer your sacrifice to God. He said, don't wait. Our relationships are so important that you fix it now. And see, if we're obedient to God and we fix our relationship problems now, then the holidays look a lot different. Because if all the confrontation's done, we fix things, our relationships are good, then we're not going into the holidays going, oh, this is going to be ugly. Because I don't know if you're like me, but if I put off a confrontation that I need to have, if I got something against someone else in my family and I haven't talked to them about it, what I'll begin to do is I'll begin to stew. And I'll start to make the problem so much bigger and so much worse than it ever was. I don't know if you're like me and you've ever done this, but you find yourself having these imaginary arguments with them. you're out in the garage working in your garage and you're sitting here going, if they say that, then I'm going to say this and I'm going to let them have it on that. It's like, because of our unwillingness to go and just fix the problem in our relationships, we make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Jesus is saying, you don't wait. You don't wait for 10 days from now on Christmas. You don't wait. No, you go do it now. If you're at church and you remember, wait, someone's got a problem with me, I need to go fix that now. And see, this is one of the things that can help us so much in having success in our relationships this holiday season. So this is how you do it. Number 1, pray for fruits. Number 2, pray for the difficult people. Number 3, choose your battles. Number 4, holidays are not the time for confrontation. And then the last point this morning is to put away your pride. Put away your pride. Humility is one of the best ingredients in healthy relationships. Jesus shows us a way to get rid of our pride, and he does it in John chapter 8, verse 3. It says, as he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman that they had caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? See, they were trying to trap him into saying this something they could use against him. See, there was no good answer here because if he were to say no, then they'd say that Jesus was going against the law of Moses, and they could have claimed he was a false teacher. If he would have said yes, they knew that Jews could not carry out capital punishment under the current Roman rules, so he was a rebel against the government, and they could attack him that way. So they're trying to trap Jesus, and they found this woman who was caught in the midst of adultery, and it says this, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, stone her, but let those who have never sinned throw the first stones. Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was with her. Where are your accusers? Was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said to her, neither do I. Go and sin no more. There's a group of men that came before Jesus, and they found a woman who was caught in the act of sin. And Jesus looked and saw the group of men, and what he saw was a group of men full of pride and full of judgment. And he asked the question, and this question caused them to do something pretty drastic. And that was a question that caused them to self-examine. He said, okay, you can do it, but what I want you to do is I want the ones who've never sinned to cast the first stone. So the people then had to go, okay, wait a minute. Now I have to stop looking at this woman who's sinning, and I've got to look at myself and go, wait, is there anything I've done? Is there any sin in my life? It says one by one, as the men, starting with the oldest and going to the youngest, one by one as they start looking in their life and go, wait, I've done this wrong, and I've done this wrong, and I've sinned this way, and I've sinned that way. The self-examination process caused them to drop the stone of pride and the stone of judgment and walk away and say, you know what? With all of this junk in my life, how could I dare point the finger at someone else? See, in the holiday season, it's really easy if we're going to sit down around a Christmas dinner table and spend time with one another to look across the room, and we know these people pretty well, so we know their issues. We know what's going on with them, and we think, great, it's going to be the same issues with this person, same issues with that person. It's going to be the same stories again, and we look around the room, and it's so easy to see all the problems in one another. But when we do what Jesus challenged this group of men to do, and we say, you know what, I'm going to take just a moment and I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to examine myself and see what's going on inside me. What's the ugly stuff in me? This is something I did this last week is I made a partial list of some of the junk that I see when I look into my own life. And it's a partial list because I started getting depressed as I was doing this, so I quit. But, I wrote this down. I wrote down that I'm loud, I'm rude, I'm a know-it-all, I'm a road rager, I'm passive-aggressive, I struggle with anger, I can be self-absorbed and selfish, and I eat too much, I drink too much, and I smell funny at times. And the list goes on and on and on, but I'm not going to continue on because I think we could all go around this room and go, you know what? When I sit down at the table with this group of people that God has blessed me enough to have in my life, they look at me and they see those same things. They know the junk going on in my life. They know when I'm loud. They know when I'm rude. They know the ugly stuff. And if they're kind enough to overlook those things in me, shouldn't I be kind enough to overlook those same things in them? And this is what Jesus was saying. When you look at yourself and you recognize all that God has forgiven you for, it's so much easier to just drop the stone of judgment and say, okay, God has forgiven me and he's forgiven them too. So let's just come together and let's just love on God and let's just celebrate with one another this year. I want to pray with you before you go. Heavenly Father, we recognize that there are just wonderful, wonderful people that are coming into our homes this Christmas time. Many of us are traveling to other people's homes. And we're so thankful for the relationships that you've given us. And God, I pray this year that as we sit face to face with these loved ones of ours and there's opportunities where we could have conflict, I pray that God, instead we would exhibit your fruits. That God, we would be loving and joyful and peaceful and patient and kind, God. I pray that you would help us be the type of people who lay down the stones of judgment and the stones of pride and say, you know what, we're all forgiven together. And God, that we could not focus on the problems with one another, but instead we'd focus on how good you are to us. So Jesus, we want to bring honor and glory to your name this weekend as we worship you, and help us, God, to live lifestyles that are worshipful and pleasing to you as well. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let's give Jesus a shout of praise before we go today. Well, I love you. Have fun with your holiday people that are coming in.